Good morning. It is exceedingly cold. It snowed up north, but we're in the south. So, should I be complaining? I'm going to complain anyway. Today, I want to talk about a book that was released this year, but has not been getting a lot of coverage. At least, I haven't noticed as much coverage on the old booktube as I was expecting. I'm surprised at that. Maybe it's due to the kind of ripple made with its release. It wasn't a big splash. In fact, I only found out about it by browsing a famous audiobook website, which I don't condone, and just seeing it in the list of new releases. And I thought, oh, he's released another book? Anyway, today I want to talk about Patrick Rothfuss's The Narrow Road Between Desires, which is a book that came out in 2023. And I nearly missed it. Now, it's okay. It's a small book. It's like, it's this, and if you go open the pages, it's like, very few words. It's a small book. It's not a new King Killer Chronicle book. It's not like Name of the Wind. It's not like Wise Man's Fear. This is much more like The Slow Regard of Silent Things. Again, it's a novella, really.
Hello. I'm just watching menacingly from the doorway.
You don't like Patrick Rothfuss, do you?
No.
So,
Don't mind me.
oh,
Hang on, coming through.
when we first started this channel, she'd have gone back around the camera. This book is essentially an expanding of a short story which was released under an anthology called Rogues, which was compiled by George R.R. Martin and I think Gardner Dozois, but I'm not sure. Maybe I'm confusing that with another one. Don't quote me on that. And the short story was called The Lightning Tree, and he's taken it and he's turned it into a novella. And it covers the most interesting character, in my opinion, from the King Killer Chronicle, which is Bast, or Bast. Probably Bast. Let's go Bast. Who is Kvothe's assistant, I guess you call him. Anyway, he's in the modern day third person narrative, and he's a tricksy fae who has certain ideas and schemes. And in this particular book, it's just covering sort of like a slice of his life. I like slice of life. That's, it's a good genre. I'd say this maybe falls slightly under cozy fantasy because not that much happens. Don't know if that's really a good definition of cozy fantasy. Nothing cataclysmic happens. Nothing like, grander than the scale of the lives of individuals. If you've watched any other videos on this channel, in fact, I pretty much talk about Patrick Rothfuss in almost every video because I have such strong opinions on his work, because The Name of the Wind is one of my favourite fantasy novels ever, and The Wise Man's Fear is one of my least favourite fantasy novels ever. Oh, hello, Faye. Come to join. So I went into this book with some prior feelings about Patrick Rothfuss, not really knowing... You right, mate? Just going to sit there in the bottom corner of the frame. When I take this book as its own, when I look at the story it tells, when I just focus on that one element, I think it's a lovely little book. The story treads very lightly. Bast doesn't do an awful lot. It's kind of just an exploration of his character and the interactions that he has with the people around him. He does have some influence, and there are, there's an arc. Over the course of the plot, Bast kind of softens a bit, I guess you could say, leans into his better nature. From what I hear about Slow Regard of Silent Things, it's kind of similar in that there's a bit of more of a just absorbing the atmosphere, absorbing the world. I do like my books to have a fairly strong plot and for things to happen in them. It didn't feel like anything was gratuitous, that there was, too much kind of soaking. It felt like there was enough happening to keep me interested, and then enough peripheral kind of like day of the life, slice of life stuff that, it felt warming, felt interesting. And Bast is not the only character. There are a number of other characters who are mostly actually the children of this village who come to Bast to essentially make a deal with him, where they trade him maybe some like information or something, and in return he asks for something from them. And usually it's something very quaint and something very fey, like, I want you to bring me 3 seashells, but they need to have a hole in them, or something like that, and they can't be collected from the base from the riverbank. They have to be collected from the flow. Very fey things. And the strongest of those peripheral characters is Reich. Reich is a young boy who's experiencing turmoil in his own family and comes to Bast with a request that when you read it, it's one of those moments where the color of the story changes, and then suddenly it becomes a lot more serious. And it's an effective moment. It impacts you because it suddenly becomes more personal. It's not just a tricksy fae being funny. It becomes about a boy's serious troubles. I'm not going to talk about any spoilers here, but the story closes in a way that I think is very satisfying and leans into, I think, one of the things that is keeping Rothfuss creative and productive, and that is when he does things for his kids. And you can sort of pick this up from the author's note at the end as well. The thing in Patrick Rothfuss's life that is keeping him, that he can tap into to find that creativity, to find that higher wisdom, and to share it with us, and to share those kind of deeper truths, is definitely, that point is definitely coming from him as a father and from his love for his kids. The end of the book kind of leans quite heavily into that and has some important lessons which he wants to teach his sons. And I think that is where this book is most successful. I mean, for obvious reasons. You know, it's heartwarming, it's profound, and lovely, to be honest. I have very little to critique about this book. If I were to critique anything, I guess it would be that perhaps the quality of his writing in this book doesn't quite match up to The Name of the Wind. He's often complimented for his prose, but I do think some of the scenes where Bast is kind of left by himself just to kind of move around the environments. As a writer, I know it's difficult to write, consecutive paragraphs to form a scene where a character isn't actually interacting with anyone, where they're just interacting with the environment. I think that was where his prose was, and his writing was let down a little bit in comparison to the other books, because both, obviously, in Name of the Wind has so much to do, so many people to interact with, and it keeps everything moving. If there's anything to critique, it would be that. There's one aspect of this story, which is a peripheral aspect, which I thought was handled okay, but I just want to raise it. There are a couple of characters in this book who are trans, and I love to see trans inclusion. Love to see more trans characters in fantasy books. I have so many trans friends. It's just, to see them represented is hugely encouraging, and we're going in the right direction, thankfully. What I will say for the trans characters in this book is they are so sort of almost like footnotes in the story. So this book is probably, I feel like this book is probably going to come up as an example of, representations of trans characters in fantasy fiction. And I just want to say that there are better. There is, for instance, like the Tenseret series by Neon Yang, where trans themes are central to the story. So if you're looking for fantasy stories with, trans characters, trans themes, I'd recommend lean into books by perhaps trans authors. Nothing wrong with how he does it in here, but I'm just anticipating that it might end up being categorized among them, and it's not that significant. So that, of course, is just talking about the book. The more, I guess, pertinent point is actually the optics of releasing a book, when anyone who's been keeping up with Patrick Rothfuss and the things that are going on with his literary career knows that currently there are lots of people who are waiting for the first chapter of Doors of Stone who have paid money for it, and he hasn't released it, and it's been quite a long time. And the last we heard from it was October 2023, where he said he feels bad about having not released it. We know that Patrick Rothfuss is a man who really struggles with his perfectionism, where it's paralyzing to him, where it's almost as if he can't get anything done because of having that higher standard for himself, where if it's not perfect, he doesn't want to release it. I wanted to say going into this that Patrick Rothfuss owes us nothing. And generally, I would say that about any creative, that they don't owe us anything. The thing is, people have paid for it. And I don't think that economy is really a good economy, paying for something upfront that a creative hasn't actually completed yet. I can see how it might stabilize an income, but this was for charity, so doesn't really apply here. This book has almost nothing to do with Doors of Stone, apart from the fact they're set in the same universe. But I don't think he should have been surprised when he logged on to Goodreads before the book had even come out and discovered that it had lots of 1-star reviews. There is a lot of public sentiment against him right now, and that is because he hasn't been able to overcome his perfectionism to complete the editing that he was going to do on that chapter and to release it. When you get into the author's note at the end, is a really interesting author's note. It's an author's note of 3 parts. Hey. And the first part is really just him grappling with the fact that he hasn't been able to write it, because nothing that he is writing is of the standard that he wants to reach. But the rest of the author's note is all about him telling stories about his sons. Likewise, this book has so much to do with him being a father. I think that seems like a rich vein of creativity for Patrick Rothfuss. And obviously I'm not his therapist, but it does seem that if he wants to get anything out there, if he wants to get his creativity flowing again, then that's where he should lean into. I'm glad he managed to overcome his perfectionism to release this little lovely book. So there you go. That is my thoughts on...
And don't forget to like and subscribe. We have an Instagram at Hardy's Books, and we're on TikTok. So if you're a TikToker, get on the TikTok.
Yes.
At Hardy's Books again. We have a shop, hardysbooks.co.uk, if you would like to purchase some lovely signed first editions or some lovely rare, weird antiquarian nonsense. Hit us up. We're you guys. Cool.
Bye.